Welcome to Tales from the Darkroom. In the places where light refuses to stay, some stories are not told. The rain hammered violently against the windshield as Daniel Reed drove his daughter Ava through the winding mountain road. They were still recovering from the tragic loss of Ava's mother a few months prior. Daniel hoped this short vacation in his late uncle's old forest cabin would help them both find some peace, but Ava wasn't the same anymore. The light had gone out of her eyes. She barely spoke, spending her days staring at the floor, clutching a strange doll she'd found near their apartment dumpster. A doll Daniel was sure he had thrown away. Twice. It was a small, twisted figure with big, mischievous eyes and a stitched smile that was just too wide for its face. Labubu, the dangerous one. As Daniel glanced at it in the rearview mirror, its eyes looked different, brighter, almost as if they were watching him. "Where did you get that thing again, sweetie?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light. Ava didn't answer. She just slowly lifted her head and smiled, the exact same crooked, stitched smile as the doll. The cabin was freezing when they arrived. The air smelled of old wood, dust, and damp earth. Rusted hinges groaned as Daniel pushed the heavy door open, and the power flickered as if someone unseen was breathing on the lights. Ava walked in silently, her small hand holding Labubu's tightly. Daniel watched as she started whispering to it, like an old friend, her little secrets lost in the growing storm outside. He started unpacking, the roar of thunder shaking the cabin's foundation. Every time lightning flashed, illuminating the room in a stark, ghostly white, Daniel noticed Labubu sitting somewhere different. First it was on the arm of the sofa, then it was on the edge of the bed. And then he saw it perched on the windowsill, its silhouette framed against the raging storm, staring out into the darkness. A cold dread crept up his spine. He'd had enough. He snatched the doll from the window, marched into Ava's room and tossed it into a wooden drawer, slamming it shut. Ava screamed, but it wasn't a child's scream. It was deep, unnatural, a guttural sound that didn't belong to his daughter. It echoed through the small cabin, making the hairs on his arms stand on end. "Labubu didn't like that," she whispered, her voice trembling with something other than fear. It sounded like a threat. Daniel's skin crawled. Later that night, the storm raged on. Daniel was drifting in and out of a restless sleep when a sound jolted him awake. Footsteps, tiny ones, quick, scratching against the wooden floorboards downstairs. He jumped out of bed, his heart pounding against his ribs, rushed out of his room and froze at the top of the stairs. The drawer where he had locked Labubu was open, empty. Something scuttled in the shadows behind him. He spun around, but there was nothing there. The temperature in the hallway dropped in seconds, a wave of icy cold washing over him. Then, a voice whispered right behind his ear, so close he could feel the chilling breath on his neck. "He wants to play." Daniel spun around again, his eyes darting through the oppressive darkness. He saw nothing. Then a massive fork of lightning burst through the windows, and for a split second, the hallway was lit as bright as day. At the far end, a small figure stood, its form silhouetted against the flash. Labubu. But it was twisted, changed. Its limbs were elongated and thin, like a spider's legs. Cracked, stubby horns protruded from its head. The stitched mouth was stretched even wider now, tearing the fabric of its skin, and its eyes, they weren't plastic anymore. They burned with a malevolent red light, like embers from hellfire itself. In one of its clawed hands, it held a small lock of blonde hair, Ava's hair. A primal scream built in Daniel's throat as he turned and ran, not knowing where he was going, only that he had to get to his daughter. He burst into her room and found her sitting motionless on the bed, her back bent at a strange, unnatural angle. Labubu was perched right beside her, watching him. "Ava? Baby." Daniel stepped forward, his voice shaking. Her head snapped toward him with a sickening crack. Her eyes were no longer blue. They were pure, bottomless black. "Leave," she hissed. And the voice that came from her mouth was layered with others, hundreds of whispering, tortured souls, all speaking at once. "Eh?" Daniel lunged for her, desperate to pull her away from the doll, but an invisible force slammed into him, throwing him back. Unseen claws dragged him across the floor, his nails splintering as he tried to find a grip. Labubu crawled up onto his chest, its weight impossibly heavy. It leaned in, its stitched smile just inches from his face. Hush. Its mouth began to open, wider and wider, revealing rows upon rows of needle-sharp teeth dripping with a thick black saliva. Daniel screamed, a raw, terrified sound, as the doll lunged for his throat. The storm outside intensified, the rain turning to a torrential downpour of shadows that seemed to beat against the cabin. Daniel fought back with everything he had, grabbing the doll and smashing it against the wall. But a horrifying realization dawned on him. Every crack that appeared on the doll's plaster body instantly appeared on his own skin. The curse of the stitched bond. Blood began to drip from deep cuts on his arms, his chest, his face. Labubu, seemingly unharmed, skittered up the wall and onto the ceiling, its body twisting in impossible angles like a possessed spider. Then it dropped, landing squarely on him again. Across the room, Ava watched the entire scene with a blank, placid smile. "You can't break him," she whispered, her voice calm and serene. "He's already inside." With a final explosive pop, the lights blew out, plunging the cabin into absolute darkness. The roar of the storm was the only sound for a moment. Then it was joined by the wet, tearing sound of flesh. And through it all, a soft, childish giggle echoed through the blackened room, a final, horrifying lullaby. Some toys are made for comfort. Others are made for collecting souls. So the next time you find a discarded plaything, a relic of childhood forgotten in the dark, look closely. If you ever find a smile stitched just a little too wide, run. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from the dark room.